Hi everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 118. Now, I hope you're all awesome. If you're not, why not? Maybe this episode will help you look to iron out your lack of awesomeness. Who knows? It's just me and the microphone again. No Rachel, no guest, no nothing. Just a very personal one from me, and answering some key questions today on kind of like mindset, goals, personal progression, and in and around that kind of theme, because it's really important. You know, we talk about nutrition, performance, health, and change a lot. Well, yeah, all of that helps support overall life progression. You know, the goals that you're chasing in life, whether it's work, financial, home life, spiritual, emotional, physique, you know, all these changes are all important. And you know, when we look at the most successful people in life, or people that we perceive as successful, for the most part, the majority of those people understand how important health and well-being is, and looking after yourself and having discipline with like an exercise routine and a healthy diet, and how that leads into, you know, a positive personal progression on a consistent basis. So last show, episode 117, I took the show back to basics. And I took the show back to basics because when I talk about the podcast online, on Facebook and on Twitter and stuff, and I talk to people that have been through all, you know, let's say 117 podcasts, there's still a lot of like really basic questions, like people don't know where to start. And I mentioned last time in the fact that some people race through the podcast, they never really reflect or use the information. And I think the people that started with me on this podcast journey right at the beginning have probably been the most successful with this information, because they've taken bits away from every week and they've applied them that week, and then they've slowly built. It's just like climbing the diet mountain. Like, it's really hard to do it all at once. So, you know, you break it down, you change one habit, then another habit, then another habit, and it becomes, you know, the correct habits and a correct lifestyle choice. And if you race through this podcast, you're probably going to not benefit from it fully. So the one thing I want to pose right now is, I know, and I've met many people that listen to the podcast, and they say to me, oh, I'm a listener and I'm doing this, and then they sort of proceed to say, oh, I just haven't done anything with my health anymore. I haven't decided to change. I haven't really applied it. And I just want to ask the question, why? Why haven't you used the information that I've given you to change? What is holding you back? And I would say that you probably either don't want to change, which is fine. You know, I'm not here to tell you that you need to change. I don't know who you are and what your situation is listening to this podcast. But what I will say is, you're listening to a podcast about personal development in the health, performance, business, life, mindset arena, but not really taking that information forward. And, you know, even if there's people listening to this that have taken some things on board and not others, and have, you know, not applied it properly, or don't feel they're ready, like, make 2015 that year you're going to do it. Like, plan out the year, plan out when, how, and what you want to change, which I'm going to talk more about on this podcast, because otherwise I feel you're, you know, slightly wasting your time listening to me talk. I want people that listen to this to get benefit from it, to be empowered with change. I want to meet you all, you know, a year down the line and say, oh, Ben, you know, your podcast is awesome. I really liked episode X, Y, and Z. I've changed this. And for me, that makes it all worthwhile. You know, this podcast takes time, it takes effort, it takes planning. And I want people to get value from it. I want people to get real life-changing information from it. And if you're not, go and find maybe a better resource. But I just want to put the ball in your park, because change, progression, goals, life, it's all in your court. It's no one else's. And while I might be sitting here giving you a semblance of motivation, I might be helping to inspire you and give you ideas, your change has to come from within. You are the only person that holds that key. And I don't believe time is a valid excuse in 98% of people's worlds. I believe there is always, whether it's 15 or 30 minutes at minimum every day, that you can apply to the things that are really important, that need to change, you can do that. I think there's all ways that we can improve time management in our lives to release more time to do more of the things that we either would like to do or have to do. And I think that's a really important point on, making changes to get to where you want to be. Because we talk about balance a lot, and we've talked about balance a lot recently on the podcast in terms of, people have asked the questions of me of, oh, Ben, you're busy, you run companies, you've got staff, you look at your own nutrition, you're training, you play rugby, you do all this stuff. How do you create balance? And, I create balance in lots of different ways, but the main thing is I'm really structured with my time. I'm really structured with who is allowed my time. Like, I won't allow anyone to just take it. If I talk to anyone, let's say I engage with you guys on social media, I make that choice that maybe I've got 15 minutes to spare and I want to help and I'll engage with people, etc. But if I don't want to do that, then I will not relinquish that time. And that's the same for you in your work environment, with your friends, with your family. If you don't want to give up that time, if you don't want to make it accessible to people, then don't. Don't put yourself in a position where people can take your time. Don't have your phone on. Don't answer your email. Whatever it might be, distance yourself from people taking your time. And then that way, if I look at my day, let's say there's 18 hours in everyone's day, because I sleep for the most part for 7-8 hours a night, then I kind of look at my life in 8-hour blocks, 8 hours for sleeping, 8 hours for working, and 8 hours for playing. And sometimes I have to do a little bit more work and a little less play, and sometimes vice versa. But I try and keep that balance. And I'm just rigidly organised with, how I do things. One habit that I've let slip leading up to Christmas, because I've been suffering with just having a bit too much on my plate a bit more, and I'm really glad I've personally had a Christmas break and I've been able to recharge my batteries and get my hunger and creativity back, is that I'd lost a bit of kind of my regime. When I hit 2015 and I'm back to work properly, my alarm's going to be going off at 5:30. I'm going to be up. I'm going to have half an hour to make a drink, prepare some food, make sure I'm organised, and then at 6 a.m. till 10 o'clock in the morning, that is my key work block. Hopefully in January we'll have my new house and a home gym, and I'm then going to take 10 till 10:30 to walk the dog. And then I'm going to make myself available to my staff on the phone so I can have sort of short meetings for whoever needs them. Then I'm going to get in the gym myself, and then I'm going to do another 4-hour block, and then I'm going to program in an hour of reading for every day. So these are even new habits I'm starting to instill in myself. I had very similar habits throughout this year and previous, but they kind of got skewed slightly by other things that started to affect in my life, and I had to kind of make time for them and account for them. But now those kind of variables have left, I can start to be a lot stricter with my time, and then I will start to plan in my downtime as well. It might sound silly, planning downtime, but if you know how your day is going to pan out, you can be really efficient. So I'll tend to work 8 to 9 hours most days. If I need to hustle and get more done, then I will program that in. There are days in the week that I tend to work longer, and days in the week I tend to work shorter. So I think getting anything done in your environment, there's always going to be a period of time when you've got to work really hard. I mean, there's loads of days in the last 5 years where I've worked 14-hour days. And I've done it because I've known that once I do those 14-hour days, and once I create something, affect someone, change something, there is a reward. And I will only do things, especially these days, when I know there is a clear reward and a clear outcome and a clear objective to it, especially in my work environment. Otherwise, I risk, wasting my time. So, if you're looking at goal setting this year, what are some of the things time-wise that are zapping up your time? You might want to make more time for the gym, more time to create a project, more time for clients, more time for family. Look at your day, be critical. What do you do from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m.? What do you do from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., etc. throughout the day? And be critical and say, right, that can go, I can put this in here. And that way you can start to really be disciplined and organised about how you're going to go about the things that you want to do. And that's really important, the point about you, because you've got to do all this stuff for you. Like, your goals are your goals, and there's points in your life, and luckily I did all this where I was in a position where I could be really selfish, but you have to be selfish in life to give other people your time and your love and your attention. For example, I had to be really selfish with my time for a good 2 years and sacrifice other things so that I could build my business, build my body, invest time in education and reading, so that when I got further on in my years and I'd done that, I can then invest more time in family and friends with maybe more time, more flexibility, more financial freedom, whatever it might have been for me and whatever it might be for you. You invest time and effort into something so you can create something for the future. And, you know, you'd be amazed that when you look at your life and the amount of years that you have on the planet and the amount of time that you will work, I think it's such a beneficial thing to, you know, really invest let's say a good 3 to 5 years really working at kind of your business or your job, you know, your financial environment, to really progress yourself, to make sure that you can create the flexibility and the financial freedom that you seek, to create the time and the work-life balance that you want to lead, because it will be really rewarding, you know. And I am not an individual that has kids at the moment, but it's something I'm now starting to plan and look at in the future, because it's a part of my life I'm really excited for. You know, so I have to create goals and environments now that I want to see when I have my children. Like, you know, for example, when my first child is born, I want to be able to say, well, I'm pretty much going to take a good 3 months off, and I want to make sure that I can dip in and out of work for maybe 10 to 15 hours a week. I can have things on autopilot, staff know what they're doing, and I'm happy that I have the financial support to, you know, enjoy the time with my family. And then there's obviously ways that I want to set up my work environment as I have kids and as I am a parent. And again, that's just one of my personal goals that I'm working towards. So I'm starting to, you know, bring things into place that is going to create that freedom that I seek further on in life. You know, right now I have a great work-life balance when everything is on point, and there is periods of time when they're not on point, and I have to accept that and work a little bit harder and, you know, just bust through it. And that's just a hard fact of life. Things take a little bit of hard work. But I know that once I've done that, I'm creating, you know, something else. And, you know, when you do get more financial freedom, those things are made a lot more sweeter, because you know the reasons why you're doing these things. You can see a positive outcome. So going back to the post that I made on Facebook for the direction that I want this podcast to go in, I got a load of questions, and I'm now going to let these questions guide what I am going to, suppose, deliver for, let's say, the next 20 or 30 minutes. So anyway, Andy Chester, he said, in short, how do you keep focused and stay on track? And I suppose it's a bit difficult, because I'm always amazed why people ask this question. You know, how do you stay motivated? I've never had a problem with motivation. I've always wanted something, and I think, to be honest, it helps being a man. Being a man, you're, you know, slightly selfish sometimes. I think a bit of selfishness is built into you. You don't have as many emotions, so emotions don't affect the actions that you might take. But in short, you know, when I started out on the journey that I wanted to take at 18, 19 with my health and with my career progression and that kind of stuff, I was very single-minded and very selfish in the fact that I wanted to achieve those things. So I was motivated to spend the time, spend the money, find the answers to create the outcome that I wanted. So when people ask me, like, Ben, how do you stay motivated? You know, there's never a point in time where I'm sitting on the sofa on a Thursday evening watching some trash where I'm going, oh, I wish I was motivated to write a book and add some value to the world or help educate people. It's just never really happened. And if you're sitting there and you have these moments, you know, you might be sitting on your ass on the sofa and you're going, oh, I wish I had the motivation to go and create something or grow my business. I would ask the question of why you don't value yourself and the outcomes well enough. Like, if you don't love yourself and love the outcome and love your environment, then change that environment, and then hopefully you should have the motivation to provide for it. Like, I have a fantastic and wonderful girlfriend. So one of my motivations in my work is that I want us to have a really good life. I want us to have good holidays, a beautiful home, a great car, all that kind of stuff. I also, in my work environment, want to feel like I'm adding value. Like, if I'm not adding value to this podcast right now, to your lives, then tell me. Like, tell me and I'll stop it, because otherwise I'm wasting my time and you're wasting your time listening to it. But that motivates me, right? I'm motivated sitting here because I'm adding value, hopefully, to your life by trying to get you or stimulate some kind of change and inspire that kind of spark. So, and then in terms of staying on track for me is just about realigning your goals. So I had a set of goals for 2014. I've achieved my goals for 2014, and I look at 2015 and I go, right, what are my set of goals for 2015? And that keeps me on track because my goals get bigger. I get, hopefully hungrier. I'm still motivated. I'm motivated by a different goal. And that's how I stay on track. So for me, I honestly cannot fathom how people can't stay on track, because I have an environment, my life is satisfying. I really enjoy it. I enjoy my friends and my family and my work and my job and the value I bring to people. And I've created something where I have a good life, and I have money to do the things that I want to do. So motivation is just something I just don't require. So I know I haven't given you a concrete answer there, a do this and a do that, because I don't think there is. But hopefully with that kind of ramble, you've kind of picked up on a few things that you might be able to be introspective about. And being introspective about all of this is really, really important, because if you can't be self-critical and work around or look at your blocking factors, then you'll never really truly be successful in the stuff you're trying to be great at. There's certain things in my personality that are very strong. So if I hadn't spent time really digging deep and identifying maybe the strengths and weaknesses in my personality, then I wouldn't have known how to best shape my path going forward. For example, I'll give you just a really simple analogy. Let's say I wanted to start promoting my business more on YouTube, and I was a personal trainer, and I see other people doing all this YouTube stuff, and it seems really great. So I'm going to start doing YouTube, but I'm really self-conscious. I don't really like hearing my own voice. I don't think I look good on camera. I don't think I'm physically attractive. Right there and then, you're working into a weakness, which is probably not going to do any good for your business. So you need to do one or two things. You need to say, right, I'm going to devote a load of time to becoming self-confident, self-aware, happy with my appearance and articulate on camera. Or I'm going to say, right, I'm going to use a different means of promoting my business, and it's not going to be on YouTube because I'm not comfortable on YouTube, so I'm going to accept that. Instead, I'm going to devote time to blogging or getting out in the local environment, leafleting. It doesn't matter. But there's just an example of how people can look at their strengths and weaknesses, and rather than going, oh, that's a real weakness, but I'm going to do it because other people are doing it. No, work to your strengths. And sometimes there are weaknesses in your skill set that you kind of need to improve. They're probably things that for your business to be really successful, you need to at least have a moderate understanding or skill acquisition of that weakness. And there are some things that you should just ignore. There's loads of people that are very successful that you will sit down and you will ask them what their weaknesses are, and they can tell you their weaknesses at a click of a finger because they've had to go there and find out why so that they can work around them. They don't want to put themselves, and you don't want to put yourselves in an environment where you are fundamentally weak. You want to put yourself in an environment where you're fundamentally strong. So, your job, your environment, your career, work towards your strengths. It's like being an artist, but your dad trying to get you, or your environment trying to force you to be an accountant. You're working into your weaknesses to try and make them strong, and they'll never probably really be strong. But if that creative person focused on their creativity, they'd probably be highly successful because that's where their natural strengths lie. And we flourish in our strengths. It's really hard to work in an environment where you're naturally weak. It's demoralizing. It's like going and playing a new sport where you're rubbish at. If I went and started playing handball, I'd be rubbish, and I'd be demoralised for a period of time, and then there'd be a period of time where I'd be kind of average and I'd be enjoying it more, but I'd never be great because I was probably naturally never really good at it, or maybe didn't have the skill acquisition to be great at it. So sometimes you've got to know when to work on your weaknesses and then when to work around them. And I think that's fundamentally important. And if you don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are, then find out. You have to find out. You have to be really self-reflective. You have to be 100% honest. And if you cannot be 100% honest about yourself, I guarantee you will never reach the success that you truly have in you. And everyone has incredible amounts of success in them, depending on what their magnitude is. And everyone's success is their success, and we're not here to judge what people deem as successful in their life. But unless you can really identify the way your character works, who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, what you really want to do, what your goals are, unless you can get into that 100% honest, you'll never really get there, because you can never really work with your goals, work around your goals, what your strengths and weaknesses are. Excuse me while I slurp on some aqua. So I hope that's helped Andy and obviously other people. I think motivation has to be hugely intrinsic. Do not look externally for motivation. Look internally for motivation from within you and your environment. So Sam Champion asked the question, I'd like to hear about your journey, your life as a kid, your lifestyle and nutrition growing up, your mistakes and successes. I think people find inspiration from real life stories. Well, Sam, I think that's really true. The type of book I am a real fan of reading is autobiography. I love autobiographies because I think you're right. You can draw a lot of not necessarily, inspiration, but I would say educated inspiration. Like, you learn from people's mistakes, and you get an idea of how and when to do it, and the whys of people that make their decisions and what has shaped their decisions. So I'm a big fan of reading autobiographies. I've read an awful lot, usually of, just highly successful people, and the chances are, if you're reading an autobiography, they're highly successful. That's why they're writing it. People want to listen to their story. So I think you can learn a lot from autobiographies. So, I mean, my life as a kid, I would say up until the age of 12, it was really normal. Had a family, got a brother, there was mum, and then there was dad. Dad always worked away. Dad worked on ships in the Navy and stuff. So I was never really that close to Dad because he spent a long time away, like he was at sea for 2-3 months at a time. So I was always really close to my mum. She was always a very big inspiration to me, and I love her for that. And hopefully I can give her back even more, because she's been a huge support in everything that I've done. But then up until about 11, 12, my parents got divorced. So Dad became even smaller part of our lives. And, I've spoke about this on the Strength Matters podcast, the interview that they did with me. I kind of got quite personal about it, that one of my early successes in my life was the fact that I didn't feel that my dad loved me. And I know that my dad loves me now. And again, this is something that I've had to be really honest with myself about. I've had to go, quite deep to kind of find this stuff out about myself and, put it on the table so that I can work around it for it not to be a problem in the future and to harness it as a strength. But, my dad me thinking that my dad didn't love me and I didn't get that recognition from my father made me very motivated to almost get noticed. And if you speak to psychologists and stuff, it's a very common theme that children that don't get love from a parent become very motivated to prove that they are worthwhile because they didn't get that recognition. So if you're a parent right here, make sure that both the mum and the dad are really giving that child love and value, and that you're showing them that you really recognise their efforts in kind of life and in everything. So early on, that made me quite motivated. my dad, never told me that he was proud of me or anything like that. It was always about mum. So I always had this kind of slight chip on my shoulder. And I think in my early years that made me very motivated, very single-minded. And then in the future, like let's talk about now, it kind of sits very much as a dormant emotion because I know why it's there. But now these days, I know that my father loves me, but my father doesn't have the capacity to love me the way that I expect him to love me. And, this is a very dangerous thing in life to expect, we have expectations about everything in life. And if things don't pan out the way that we expect them to, we see it as a negative, and we shouldn't. Like in life, things aren't always the way we think they're going to be, and we need to accept that. And that's just our expectations. It's not the negative outcome of the situation. It's just an expectation thing. So I expected my dad to love me in a certain way, and he didn't. And as I've gone on, I've noticed that he doesn't have the capacity to love me in that way. So I've made peace with my dad to sort of say within myself that he will never love me like that. It doesn't mean that he doesn't love me. He just shows it in different ways. And I had a conversation with someone a while back that was in a very similar situation to me, and they sort of showed them how a character like my dad would love someone. And it really put to bed, a few demons that I had in terms of how different people show their affection and love. Because in a kind of family environment, that's really important. To know that you're loved by all the different people in your environment is really rewarding and powerful. And for a lot of people, not knowing that or not having certain loves and relationships in your lifestyle, could be quite problematic, and it's something that a lot of people need to resolve because it can be a blocking factor. So early on, that made me very motivated. From the age of 12, from the age of 9, I went to a private boarding school, so I was sent away. My parents really wanted me to be stable, and we used to move school every 18 months because my dad got shipped somewhere, so we had to move. So they sent me to boarding school because they knew that I would get stability in my education. When they got divorced, I moved to a different boarding school, and I was just fortunate to stay in boarding school because my mum got a job at the boarding school, which means you then still got means tested, which means that my mum paid for my education on what she could afford. So I was able to go to an amazing school, for very little because my mum decided to work there. She saw it as an opportunity to educate me better. And then, when I throughout school, I did a lot of creative subjects. I was a very creative individual. I'm not good with numbers and, so much kind of like physics, chemistry, kind of more numbers and systems based theory. I'm a very creative individual. So I did drama and art and design, technology, those kind of subjects. And then that creativity was always, for me, expressed in art and drama. So I always acted as a kid. I was going to go to drama school when I left school, and basically being an obese teenager, I decided that I had to lose weight when I left school. Now, Sam asked about the nutrition I had growing up. My nutrition was, fairly good as a youngster, and I got fed really what my mum thought was healthy. My mum was always health conscious, and she fed us the food that she thought was best. She never fed us a food that, she thought was bad, unknowingly, and this is a big thing with child nutrition at the moment, in that we can only give our child the food that we think is the healthiest. So if that appears to be unhealthy, we need to educate ourselves better. So at the time, my mum was a vegetarian. She was a vegetarian for most of our childhood. So, we were never deprived of meat or animal protein or protein in any form, but we had, an average vegetarian pimped with meat diet when we were growing up. So the problem was for me in my nutrition when I was younger is I had lots of intolerances. So intolerance to dairy and gluten, and those caused problems with my health. So I had asthma, ADHD, I had a lot of weight, and that, would have been, something down to the intolerances, but mainly down to the fact that I probably ate a lot in the school canteen, which, didn't help. So when I left school, I had to change all that. I had to re-educate myself, and that's what got me into the whole fitness journey. And I don't really want to go into that anymore because if you go onto my website, bencoomber.com, I've done a lot of interviews on other people's podcasts, and all those interviews are on bencoomber.com. So I don't want to elaborate on that side of my story too much because I've talked about it a lot and in the past on those interviews, and I don't want to feel like I'm going over old ground for people. And then, leaving school, I went to train to become a personal trainer after I went on my weight loss journey. And then that inadvertently led me into university to create a business in my second year of university, then to create several more, and it kind of just spiraled. So, what I've really given you an idea of there is how my childhood and my family environment kind of shaped a lot of the decisions that I made and the thought process that I have. And everyone's childhood environment does shape who they are as a human being. And again, this is another reason why you really need to be honest with how you operate as an individual, because again, it's strengths and weaknesses. Like, I have strengths and weaknesses in my character which are shaped by my childhood and are shaped by my school environment and lots of other things. So the sooner I can harness that and identify with that, the sooner I can create a more powerful being, because I have identified with the things that I'm good and weak at. So that gives you a little bit more into kind of me as an individual, and that was quite personal, but hopefully it goes a long way to help other people with identifying those things in their lifestyle. So moving on, Stephen Duncan asked the question, with it being that time of year again where people begin to look at goal setting or the doomed New Year's resolutions, I would like to ask a question. I've recently finished reading Michael Herpel's How to Be Brilliant. It's an amazing book. Thank you for recommending this. It's an unbelievably good book. Is this something you still refer to? What were the main things that you took from the book? Do you still goal set for blocks of 90 days, then 4 blocks of 90 days, or how does Ben Coomber goal set? Do you still do a wheel of life? Thanks for the inspiration. Have a great Christmas and Happy New Year when it comes. He also asked books that I've read in 2014 and what I'm planning to read in 2015. So, in terms of what I took from the book, I actually explained that a lot in the podcast that I did with Michael. If you haven't listened to that podcast for any reason, then please do listen to that podcast. Michael is an amazing guy, and he has several books, one of them being How to Be Brilliant, and I absolutely, love that book. I think it's really powerful. But, his key question was, do I still use this information? So, yeah, when I was working through my strengths and weaknesses and finding out what I was strong at as a character, I also had to find out what actually made me tick as an individual. Like, all the things that have shaped me as an individual, what is closest to my heart, what makes me as an individual, and that constitutes your values. So my values are written on my pinboard above my computer, and I refer to them every day. And my values are really important because they guide me, right? They guide my actions. Like, for some of them, let's look at some of my values and, my mantras that I've got on my pinboard. Now, one of them is communicate with everyone I meet in life. So one of the key things I do is I'm an educator, right? I'm trying to help people on their journey and help discover theories and paths and moments that can help them. So everywhere I go, I try and communicate with the people that I meet because I feel that it creates connections. So that's something that's close to me, and also it helps my business. I always try and break out my comfort zone. Like, if I don't try and push myself in different environments, then I won't always progress as an individual. You've got to put yourself in environments where you're uncomfortable. And the more that you become successful, the easier some things become. But you've still got to push yourself into different areas of not being comfortable, because that's where you reach greater levels of success. Use the words, I need your help. So for me, that's quite a powerful term, in the fact that you need to be connected with your emotions, and you need to allow other people to come in and help you both emotionally and physically. So for me, being able to ask for help from people means that I am vulnerable and I am weak in certain things. So I need help with those things. But me being able to admit that and ask for help creates, creates respect from other people, because people can see that not everyone's perfect and everyone does need help. So that's a really important point for me. I always trust and use my intuition. Like, I always trust my gut feeling. I've made a few decisions recently that have been more calculated and guided by other people that have advised me, and I wish I hadn't, because my gut is literally always right. So I think it's really important to kind of go with what feels right for you as an individual, especially when we're now looking at goals and where you want to progress things. Positive thoughts are not enough. Take positive action. I think that's very self-explanatory. What can I do to grow and help others grow today? So I always try to look to grow on a daily basis in some capacity, whether it's knowledge or experience or love or friendship. I have to grow, and I have to try and help other people to do that. I feel successful when I instill success in someone else. So this podcast is me trying to help you become more successful. I'm trying to give you skills and help you, inspire you to be more successful in your own life. And that will help me feel more successful. Make me feel like I've done something of positivity. And then be a leader. For me, I have to lead by example. Like, I don't do anything that I haven't asked other people to do. So I think that's really important, that I've experienced things. So, identifying with your values and living by them every day is really, really, really important. So I have them right there in front of my laptop every day. And, some of my other keyword values are integrity, honesty, passion, enthusiasm, health, creativity, contribution, fun, love, success, and recognition. So those things are like short keywords of some of the sentences that I read out. So if you haven't done this, go back to that podcast, listen to it with Michael Happel, buy his book, and identify your values. Dig down deep and find out what makes you tick, because it will create a clearer path for you in the future to show you that where you need to take yourself, your business, your life, whatever it might be. So do I still goal set in blocks of 90 days? I do. I create a timeline, and then I break my year up into quarters, and then I goal set what I want to achieve throughout the quarters within that year, and then I break them down into months, and then I have weekly things that need to be done, and then that breaks down into daily. So I still do goal set. I don't goal set quite as rigidly as I do, because I find my goal setting it's kind of built into my subconscious more now, because I've been doing it so long. I've been practicing organized goal setting for a long time. So I kind of go into autopilot a bit, but I force myself to write it all down and structure it so that I visualize it on multiple levels. So I do think it's really important. You've got to have an idea of where you're going, whatever your goal might be. I hope that helped, Stephen. But, go back, revisit that podcast and make sure you read the book and really apply that kind of stuff. But, of course, I still goal set. So to top off he did ask the question, what 3 books have I read in 2014 that have helped? So I'll give you a couple. One of them was How to Lead by Joe Owen. And I read that book because I have people that look up to me for advice and guidance these days. I have staff and coaches and things, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing the best by them, that I created a work environment they really wanted to work in, that I made time to appreciate them. So I wanted to make sure that I could be a good leader to them, I could be a good boss. So that was a book that was really important for me, and I think it was really good. Another book is Richard Branson's Like a Virgin. It kind of put a lot of little things into context for me, and I just generally enjoyed the read from the fact that it was lots of little personal anecdotes from him about situations that he's been in, emails that he's wrote, business deals that he's done. So I really enjoyed that on just a personal level for multiple reasons. And thirdly, this is kind of apt for some of the stuff that I've talked about on a personal level. I didn't write it. I wish I had. I read Brian Moore's autobiography, Beware of the Dog, who's an ex-rugby player and now BBC pundit for a lot of the rugby games on TV. And his autobiography was very enlightening. It was very personal. It was very deep. It talked about his childhood. It talked about how he developed his career, how opportunities came about. And I took a huge amount away from that book, because it shows you all the different things that you have to do, the environments that you have to either put yourself in or take yourself away from to get the things that you want to do. It also enabled me to look at some things that I might not do or things that I have to do. So I just think it was really personal. It was really upfront. It was obviously relevant to me because it had a bit of rugby theme into it, but I really enjoyed that. And then you asked the question, what are the 3 next books on my radar in 2015? Now I'm getting into coffee more and more, especially decaf coffee, because I don't really drink decaffeinated coffee anymore, rarely. I'm starting to read a lot about how coffee is grown and people's coffee journeys all around the world. So I've got the new Coffee Atlas by James Hoffman. Really can't wait to read that, because I want to know everything about coffee. I think it's such an amazing thing, but I'll be honest, I like drinking it all day. I also like all the flavours and tasting it and spices. So, decaf is a perfect way to do that, but it's quite hard to find a good cup of decaf. So I suppose part of me is also considering looking at, decaf coffee and providing something that people might really like, because I think decaf coffee is fantastic because it allows you to drink coffee all day without the caffeine, sorry. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I've got a Tony Robbins book that I really want to read. I love that guy. I think the stuff that he does, I think people have no idea how much he gives back to the world and how much of a difference he's made. So I'm looking forward to reading that book. And then this isn't a book, but I'm making a new habit in the fact that I haven't been reading as much research-based stuff as I've wanted to in the last 6 months. So Examine.com have got their new research review, their Reader's Digest. So I'm now making a monthly habit to sit down and digest that and apply that into my work a bit more, because it's something that had slipped over the last 5 to 6 months in my kind of work environment. That it might be timely to mention that Examine.com's research review is amazing. If you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. If you don't know where to find it, feel free to drop me a message on Facebook and I'll send you a link to it. It's now something that we've added to the Academy. So I think it costs $40 a month. Everyone that enrolls in the Body Type Nutrition Academy, which is my education program in nutrition, which is totally online, you now get free access to that research review every month, because it's really important for me to give you the information to continually be on top of the nutritional research and all the latest developments in that arena. So we give that to you for free because I have paid for the UK license to be as part of our education body. So if you join the Academy, which does start, the foundation starts this February, the Body Type Nutrition Academy, and the main academy starts in April. So if you sign up at any point in the future, you will get this as part of your learning experience. And hopefully in the spring will also be the first online reps certified course of its nature. So you'll also get reps points and it'll be more internationally recognised, etc. Cool. So I hope that helped. A few little gems of books. And then to finish off this podcast, Susan asked for a very interesting question. What are your predictions for the industry for 2015 and beyond? Now, I'm not so sure about predictions. I'm going to shift this question slightly and sort of say what I want to happen. I think fitness has moved a long way in the last, let's say, 2 years, in the fact that we've kind of exercised a lot of balance and a bit less extremism in the fitness industry. And, we've been battling with terminology for a huge amount of time. And, a lot of the modern terminology has been around like paleo and the gut and macronutrients and, various kind of arguments and extremism. And I hope that more and more of the industry finds more and more of a balanced ground, that more and more coaches are talking to people about their lifestyle and habits and change and implementing small things, and finding an exercise program that suits them without too much, without being overly dedicated about it, from the fact that it doesn't take too much out of your lifestyle, etc. So I think a lot more balance for 2015, and hopefully with my education I'm helping people exercise that kind of balance and understand what it means to pass that information on to other people. I also think that the industry will start to understand scientific based research a lot more. We just talked about examine.com. They're giving something to people that is allowing people to understand scientific research at a more basic or consumer friendly level. And then I suppose aside from that, I hope companies like Herbalife and Juice Plus, etc., do worse, and farmers markets and natural food suppliers and that kind of thing do more, as people realise that the answer isn't in a shake, and it is in real food and exercise and being habit based with it. So hopefully that's the approach. I'm gonna sign off. 2015 and all these different goals and resolutions that we set ourselves, we often take a mockery of it, like, oh, here we go, it's the New Year's, everyone's resolutions, blah, blah, blah. But, the start of a new year is a good time to refocus. I'm going to refocus some of my stuff. I'm now putting into place things that I want to change in the future and the way that I want the next year to pan out. And it's a good time because we take a lot of time off at Christmas. I've just had 2 weeks. I'm raring to go. I'm back to work. I've got my creativity back in full force. So, the end of a year is a good time. So sit down, realign your goals, work out your goals, not anyone else's. Be self-critical. Be really self-evaluating so you can work around your strengths and weaknesses. Plan things. Know that you might have to put in a good 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know, maybe 5 years of hard work to get to where you want to be. But either way, trust me, anything that you want to achieve is achievable. Absolutely anything. And it just takes a bit of hard work, a bit of dedication, a load of time, a lot of time, a lot of hard work and dedication, depending on your goals. So I hope you all have an amazing 2015. I'm going to have an amazing 2015. I've got lots of things in the pipeline. I'm working on books. I'm working on some TV stuff that I really hope is going to kind of come to fruition. I'm, growing the amount of people that I can help educate. You'll obviously get to hear this because you're a podcast subscriber, and I talk about my stuff a lot on the podcast. And, I'm really thankful that you guys listen to this, and I hope you take a lot away from it. I know this has been nearly 50 minutes of re-rabbling on my own, and you might have fallen asleep, you might have turned off, who knows. But I will see you in 2015, hopefully in person. I love meeting people that listen to the show. But if I could ask one thing, and I asked this a couple of weeks ago, please just keep engaging on a level that attracts other people. Like, when you see the podcast posted on Facebook, please just hit like. If you like the show, please share it. Please help other people discover information that's going to empower them and help them change. If you haven't written a review on iTunes or Stitcher, which is obviously a high percentage of listeners, there's about over 10,000 people listening to this show, and we've got 461 reviews on iTunes. If you haven't left a review on iTunes, please leave a review. It really, really helps other people find the show. It helps me with rankings with iTunes and helps, again, other people find it. And it means a lot to hear your positive comments. So, Happy New Year. I hope you feel that this show has been of benefit, and I will talk to you more in 2015 and help you achieve your goals even more. Ciao. Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas. Hey everyone, it's Ben Coomber Radio, podcast number 117.